Hello, welcome or welcome back. It's me, Farah. I recently saw Opus in theaters and I really want to talk about it because I think I have both affirmative and critical thoughts. And this is a movie I was really looking forward to seeing, not only because I'm in my cinephile bag lately, but also because I'm just like a big fan of Io Debris' work. So yeah, this is gonna be my review. I'll do like a spoiler free and then a spoiler section so that if you haven't seen it yet, you can determine if it's worth it for you to go spend your money to see this. And then if you have seen it or you just don't care about being spoiled, you can watch the whole thing. So I'll start off with the non-spoiler thoughts. If you are an Io Debris fan, I think you should see it. The reviews aren't great, but she gives a great performance and looks incredible, which was all I was hoping for as someone who came to the film looking to see Io as a final girl in a creepy movie. She was arrestingly gorgeous in every shot. Wow. While Iowa Debris in a starring role was a main draw for me, I do remember seeing previews for this and being genuinely interested in the premise. Young journalist Ariel feels like she's stuck in her career. She hasn't written a single story she felt was particularly good or important. She wants to write about famous people because she sees that as a surefire way for people to be interested in her work and eventually interested in her and what she has to say. A pop star named Alfred Moretti suddenly returns to announce his 18th album after being neither seen nor heard from for 27 years, and a select few, including Ariel and her boss Stan, have been invited to hear the album before everyone else. But when they all get to what is essentially a cult compound where their phones and laptops are taken and they are surveilled 24 hours a day, it's obviously very eerie. In terms of a review that is spoiler free, I would say be prepared for a lot of visual appeal, but ultimately not a whole lot of substance. I gave Opus 3 stars out of 5 on Letterboxd because even though I had issues with the script, I think it was like fun and it was pretty and it starred Iowa Debris. John Malkovich was also great in this, as always, enamored of his gap and manner of speaking. I wish the script he was given was a little bit better because I loved him in this role. This is writer and director Mark Anthony Green's debut feature, so I do feel like this project is that much more impressive with that context. The technical elements felt very polished, and he landed some big names to be in his first movie. Green also comes from a journalism background. He was a style columnist at GQ for some years, and his job involved profiling celebrities, much like Ariel. With that in mind, I am starting to think that Opus might have more interesting things to say about the people who cover them than the celebrities themselves. Opus is an independent film produced by A24, and to give more context to the production, I want to read this quote from a Script Magazine interview with Mark Anthony Green. "We shot this film in 19 days. We shot it with very, very limited resources compared to the budget and talent and ambition of the film. There's no interview long enough. There's no magazine with enough pages that could accurately describe and encapsulate the effort and brilliance that those people brought to this film. It's nice to see this renaissance of independent filmmaking, and it sounds like Green has the utmost respect for his cast and crew and loves what they were able to make together, which I think is so nice." I think that's all from my spoiler-free thoughts. Like, big picture, fun and entertaining, and there's a lot for you to look at. Good music, but not super scary, and kind of like confused in the messages that it wants to convey. So yeah, that's the spoiler free section done. If you haven't seen Opus, click off and come back when you have. So now for my deeper spoilery thoughts. I loved the first act. And in an interview I watched where Green was talking about his influences for this film, he did say that the first act was one of the things he's most proud of about Opus. However, the rest of the film felt kind of underwhelming to me. I thought the opening credits scene was really cool and established without any dialogue what a megastar Alfred Moretti is in this universe, how deeply he affected people who were fans of his. I was kind of surprised by the name Moretti for this character, though. This is an excerpt from an AP News review by Mark Kennedy. "In the new horror movie Opus, we are introduced to Alfred Moretti, the biggest pop star of the 90s with 38 number one hits and albums as big as Thriller, Hotel California, and Nebraska. If the name Alfred Moretti sounds more like a personal injury attorney from New Jersey, that's the first sign Opus is going to stumble." This is one piece of what was a pretty scathing review, but I thought that was really funny. But this character has been compared to real life figures like Prince and Elton John, these very glamorous, flamboyant singers, and I guess this name is more on the Elton John side of things. I thought the setup of this world was done really skillfully using music, which was really good music. I enjoyed the pop music this movie had on offer. The Act 1 storytelling was tight, and I was really excited to see where the story would go. Io and young Mazzino, I recognized him from Beef. Whoa, they looked good together. I don't think he was her boyfriend, but there was something flirty going on. I want to say that he was criminally underutilized, but in reality, with the story they were telling, he was probably in it just the right amount. I think there were some really interesting cinematic choices with the angles we saw and the motion of the camera. I remember being really struck by the scene where the bus was arriving and the camera starts moving backwards. It felt like we, the viewers, were also being pushed back in the direction of the levelist commune, and then we zoom out to see how expansive it is. I think the framing was really dynamic throughout. My excitement was still there once we got to the compound and met Moretti. I think John Malkovich in this role struck a good balance between quiet, almost creepy regality and a clear magnetism. When we see the truly 24/7 concierge popping her gum, the camera footage from each of their private rooms, and Bill Lotto restrained and killed on the massage table night one, I thought this was shaping up to be a really entertaining horror movie where we see the 6 guests picked off one by one. But then I felt the movie lose steam and devolve pretty fast. To be honest, I think the pubic shaving is where they lost me. We see Ariel resist a little bit, but not enough. That was that was beyond my ability to suspend my disbelief. And I think the point was that it was so outrageous and everybody ultimately agrees to it because this is what the massive celebrity requires of them. But that did take me out of it. It was followed by a scene that I would say was entertaining, where Moretti performs very sexually for the remaining 5, but I don't think Opus regains the momentum it had in Act 1, even though things do move quickly. When we get to the climax, which starts with that weird puppet show about Billie Holiday, which I actually really liked. I do have an appreciation for puppetry as an art form, and I thought that part was filmed very evocatively. I felt myself getting anxious every time the looming, pimply rat photographers asked another insensitive question of the Billie Holiday puppet. Are you still on that smack? But when we get to the climax, the influencer having an allergic reaction claws her way out of the beanbag and the levelists just start killing people. It felt very empty and very quick. It's revealed later that each of these people slighted Moretti somehow, but I think not knowing why any of this was happening made that part of the movie so much less impactful. They're obviously being punished, but we don't know why. When Ariel escapes and is cornered in the bathtub, I thought that sequence was alright. I thought it was very funny that her concierge scaled the trellis and came through the window to try and choke her out. Not once in this movie was she playing around. She meant business. I wish we got to see the struggle, but the choice to just have the camera on the door while we're hearing them fight definitely built the suspense before the concierge walks out and it's revealed that they got her. They got our girl. I think sound was used to great effect in telling the story, but the story was ultimately the problem. When Rachel, I think was her name, helps Ariel escape and she gets chased down by her concierge again, both of them on lawnmowers, I think, some small vehicle. I thought that was fun, but again, very brief. And Ariel climbing the fence with barbed wire gives her a hand scar, just like many of the levelists we saw had. So much symbolism. And then she talks to one of the superfans outside the gate for all of 10 seconds before just incapacitating him with the 3-finger move, a callback to Act 1, which I appreciated. And takes his car. God only knows how she navigated back to civilization and then returned to the compound same day with a fleet of cop cars. Or I guess it was the next day because it was light outside, but still. I think I spent probably half the movie wondering what point it was trying to make. Because it ends on the note that Moretti, who is serving 5 life sentences, won? Because a lot of people are reading about the horrible things he did in his levelist ideology. I don't get that. In the end, it was somewhat opaque what Opus was trying to say. Was it that there are people out there who genuinely think talent and creativity make them superior? That celebrity worship is akin to a cult? That the amount of attention someone like Alfred Moretti received, sustained over years and years and nearly 20 studio albums, has the capacity to warp one's brain such that they would devise a plot to murder even the mildest of detractors and delight in the publicity resulting from a book detailing these events? If so, I think these are ideas that have been explored before with more depth and clarity. Y'all are weird about celebrities is a sentiment that is true and can be illuminating to discuss, but if that was all Mark Anthony Green wanted to say, I don't know that this needed to be a feature-length film. There are things to reflect on here with the relationship between celebrity and how we talk about it. I think Stan's resistance to letting Ariel write about the cult Moretti is obviously heading, instead just wanting to focus on the music and Moretti, is commentary on journalism that isn't focusing on the right things, or that is deferential to the parties it discusses so that the journalists can maintain access to perks like an early album listening weekend, and keep favor with the very powerful, influential people or organizations that they are writing about. But that's like one 20-second exchange. And then Stan literally gets shot through the shoulder with a bow and arrow. I read a review from Joshua Rivera at IGN that definitely made me engage more with what the film had to say about journalism and celebrity. There's a good amount to chew on here if you are someone predisposed to thinking about magazine journalism and the ways it interacts with celebrity. Early on, Ariel outlines a career plan that starts with interviewing interesting people so that others will find her interesting enough to interview, effectively giving away the game. A big part of doing Ariel's kind of magazine writing is keeping your ego in check enough to at least appear as if your goal is never to become a story yourself. Over the course of 104 minutes, she learns this lesson, which can make Opus feel more like shop talk than a movie. I find what it has to say interesting because I'm a journalist who's written for magazines and thinks about them a lot. The job, particularly when it involves following celebrities around, can lead to blurry lines between observing and participating. as well as coming to grips with how elusive the truth can be when your subject is always performing, even when they are trying to convince you they're not. There's good drama in this, but it's also the kind of inside baseball that can be profoundly alienating to anyone who isn't already in this business or interested in it. I hadn't really thought much about what Green was trying to say about journalism beyond, oh, these people are sucking up, so I appreciated this writer putting it this way. But the way that Ariel's story ends is kind of unsatisfying. Maybe that's the point. But we get the sense that she's been effectively used as a tool to spread the levelist message. To what end is also my question. Like, what are their goals with this popularity? But is this ending affirming what her friend said to her at the beginning? Are we supposed to conclude that it's true that you have to experience something that is a spectacle or that is exceedingly painful to have any noteworthy perspectives and to find success? Maybe that's not the message the film is trying to endorse, but more a sense of fear it wants to leave the audience with. That fear of like, even if you work really hard, what if you didn't actually have anything interesting to say? What if your suffering or your proximity to a more well-known figure was all anyone ever cared about? Those are scary thoughts. But yeah, I left Opus unsure of exactly what I was meant to take away. Because if it was that celebrity as a construct can be dangerous and we need better journalism, I kind of went in feeling that way. I think the performances were great. The costuming was transcendent. Every one of John Malkovich's many outfits, show-stopping. I specifically loved the green sarong, the all-red outfit, the all-green outfit, and the choice to have these like chunky rings over gloves. I think they were driving gloves. I thought the styling was impeccable. I really appreciated the detail of, if you're gonna show us Io with this curled blowout, also show us how she wraps it up at night or when she goes for a run. Black directors directing black starlets. Need more of that. The music was also really good. I really liked the sequence in the beginning where Dina Simone plays and we see all the different ways the song is appreciated by all these different people. I thought that was really skillful world building and it helped that the song sounds good. As I already mentioned, really dug the cinematography too, but the script had problems. I think while its sparseness was an asset in the first act because it still manages to show us both through visuals and through sound what we needed to know to understand the story. Once we got to act 2, we were not really being shown what we needed to know beyond the situation is weird. There was so much more I wanted to know. I wish we could have learned how Moretti discovered levelism and why it was so imperative to him that the ideology spread. The motivations for the levelists, who were either born at the compound or answered a random call one day and uprooted their lives because they really liked this guy's music, felt underwritten. Tell us more about this religion, this way of life, beyond the fact that it's a very creepy cult where they all wear blue. Why do they subscribe to this? What are any of them getting out of it? Especially the woman who helped Ariel escape. What's going on in her mind since she still seems to be evangelizing for the cult after all this? Is it that she was always meant to give Ariel a way out so she could write the book? I also think the symbolism of the levelists felt vague and mostly unexplored. The one exception might be the pearls. My interpretation was that practice of shucking oysters to try to find a pearl, and the logic behind that being that all things are not equal and a pearl is just inherently more valuable than some things, and them being very rare, so you have to open up a lot of oysters before you find one. I thought that was in line with the idea this movie was presenting and maybe critiquing, if so inexpertly. And that idea is that some people are just blessed and burdened with the divine creativity. Those people are more valuable and should lead our society and be able to get away with worse stuff. And I think the scars on the hands from cutting yourself opening these oysters maybe represents the suffering artist trope. Like, maybe the pearl also represents someone's magnum opus, that one really important creative contribution, but you have to go through a lot of pain to get it out of yourself. Ariel getting a handscar of her own is reinforcement of this idea we also hear from Young's character very early on in the film. You have to have certain experiences, in this case painful ones, for your perspectives to be meaningful. So I feel like I got the pearls thing, but everything else, why do they wear blue? Why is it important that they all seem to know trades? I guess that's just to show that this is a cult of creative people, but yeah, I wish the symbolism had been engaged with more in the text. If I'm reading this right, I think I agree with Mark Anthony Green that the exceptionalism around celebrities, particularly those who produce art, is at the very least grating, and at the worst can cause people to excuse some very bad behavior. I think with some tweaks to the script, this movie could have explored this more meaningfully, but as it is, it somehow felt both heavy-handed, but also like some of the events in the film were random or unmotivated. I just didn't buy it as much as I would have liked. I wish the rest of the 6 had more to do. I feel like the influencer in particular barely got a line in. I was really at a loss as to why any of these people were chosen to be there until the very, very end. I think Tony Hale had just enough to do, and I was obsessed with him as Soledad Yusuf. As someone who likes horror movies, I wish Opus got a lot weirder and a lot more violent. I feel like this kind of wasn't a good movie. At least half of it felt like it wasn't very good. But I am kind of the mind that Iowa Debris in cute outfits with big hair is almost enough to make anything a good movie, hence my 3-star rating. Critics have evaluated it fairly for the most part, I think, but some of the reviews have been overly negative. There are a lot of people being so mean about it. Empty Symphony, a fangless spoof of celebrity culture. A24 reaches new low. Damn! I had fun. I'm seeing Opus compared to Get Out a lot, which doesn't make sense to me. Once I found out the director is black, though, I was like, huh, is that maybe why people are drawing this comparison? Opus doesn't touch on race at all, really. So is it just the concept of a black person going to a remote location and experiencing weirdness? Will every black auteur interested in the horror genre have to deal with being compared to Jordan Peele all the time? Seems reductive and strange to me. While Opus didn't stick the landing for me, Iowa Debris and John Malkovich gave incredible performances. Overall, I found this film to be immersive and very visually interesting. While certainly creepy and unsettling, it didn't totally deliver on the thriller horror front for me. The scariest thing about this movie was how stunning Io looked in every single scene. I was in disbelief. I could not look away. Well, I will say, I was horrified by that piece of bread that everyone took a bite out of. That was wet by the time it got to Ariel. That was horrifying from a public health perspective. The costuming, score, and cinematography were amazing, even if the script felt a bit hollow. I'll probably watch again just to see Io in that yellow dress. The yellow dress, the green suit, the scene in the prison where she's in a turtleneck with her hair clipped up. I also love the not super glamorous looks from Act 1 where she's just in really nice sweaters. So good. I think people should go and see this movie in theaters if for no other reason than to see how gorgeous Io Debris looks on the big screen. Those are my thoughts on Opus. I think it impressed me as a directorial debut and also in general with a lot of the technical elements, but like the story was a little bit off. But I was just entertained by Io and John Malkovich and, you know, the other side characters, but they just didn't really get to do that much. I wonder if there were a lot of things that were cut. But I did appreciate the 104-minute runtime. Not a lot of movies are keeping it under 2.5 hours these days, which is wild to me. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts about Opus, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!
No, later. No, I'm going on later. I'm going to the office later. Back in the evening when everybody gone, 6, 7 o'clock, okay, I'll take the noise.
You have to eat it down here?